Mr. Simon Jordan got into the break there, had one word for agents everywhere: nauseating. Now, it appears that football's super agents, in other words, the ones at the very top of the tree, including Simon's best friend Mino Raiola, and also Jonathan Barnett back here in London. I think Forbes say that Jonathan Barnett is the most successful agent ever after looking after Gareth Bale, etc., etc. Those same agents are preparing to take on FIFA over enforced salary cuts for players due to the COVID crisis. Now, Barnett put me right on that this morning, and he said, no, you're wrong about the COVID crisis aspect of this. So I said to him, OK, what is your issue then? Because you definitely have one with FIFA.
Basically, because FIFA don't know what they're talking about. They're proposing to bring in a whole lot of rules and regulations regarding agents, when they haven't the faintest idea what an agent actually even does, along with a lot of press people who are also the same. They've never been in an agent's office to know what they've done. What we're proposing is, if you want to bring in rules, and we're not against rules and regulations, we're proposing that they sit down with a blank piece of paper and talk to the agent. If you don't have consultation, it can't be legal and it can't be correct.
Jonathan, it seems that they want to rein you guys in because it can become like the Wild West.
That's rubbish. Why is it like the Wild West? People use that term, it's like the Wild West with not 1 ounce of proof. If you look at our agents' records and you look at FIFA records, who's been charged more with crimes? People, FIFA or agents?
But they want agents regulated, Jonathan. And
so do we. We want regulations, but we want proper regulations and in consultation with FIFA. We are quite prepared to sit down and talk to FIFA and come up with regulations, because every association has to have agents, has to have rules, and we're quite there. But you can't write up rules about something you know nothing about. It's like asking me to write up a rule for astronauts. If I don't know anything about that, how can I write rules about them? FIFA's the same. Not one of their people has been into any major agent's office to look or to talk with them. It's complete disgrace.
So if FIFA want to talk to you guys, you say bring it on.
No, they don't want to talk. They don't want to talk to us. They just want to come up with rules. They meet with phony small agents and say they've had consultation. It's complete rubbish.
So it seems there, You've got two sides, the agents at the very top like Raiola and Jonathan Barnett, and you've got FIFA, but they very definitely see things differently. I mean, how is peace ever going to break out between these two sets of individuals?
Jonathan's right to some extent, because it's, you're asking FIFA, which is an organisation whose past is very checkered and full of inconsistencies and downright poor behaviour, to regulate another sector which is full of the same, with due respect to Jonathan. Talking about writing policies for aerospace, well, most of these agents are space cadets, so they probably could do it quite easily. But the notion that it isn't the Wild West, he doesn't like the terminology. It is the Wild West. It's unregulated and uncontrolled. I've always maintained that 90% of corruption in and around football, excluding the notion that the FIFA guys and Sepp Blatter and Platini at UEFA and whatever else they didn't do. But within the confines of football, inducements, bad behaviour, you always find an agent at the centre of it. You can't turn around and suggest to me that Mino Raiola's constant diatribe about Paul Pogba being indexed to other clubs on the eve of certain games and creating division between clubs is an aid to the game. It's a necessary evil that to some extent has no greater good. We have to accept that agents are here.
Oh, that's why I'm surprised you're saying you go with Jonathan to some degree, because
I go with Jonathan.
Salary cuts, they're not having that by any stretch.
Yeah, but that's not his business. What is his business? If the football world wants to regulate the way players are paid, that's up to the football world. If they want to regulate how agents operate within the world of football, then the agents may have something to say about that. And they will perhaps have more right to have that vantage point than they have a right to dictate to football how it should police the finances of the game. I would no more ask an agent about financial fair play than I would ask an agent about the moral code of the way that football operates, because they're just simply, diametrically opposed to what's really for the well-being of the game. Jonathan, is an agent that I've had dealings with. I'm not the greatest admirer of him, but I don't think he's a bad agent. I know David Manassi, who was his partner for some time. He is a reputable agent. Gareth Bale has made him a very well-paid agent and has operated at a certain level. He is right. He is right to say, hold on a second, FIFA themselves hardly pass any test when it comes to the idea that they in some shape or form are the guys that uphold the rules of the game. Their motivation at this moment in time is to generate as much revenue as they possibly can, to try and challenge UEFA for generating revenue. When did the World Cup become the FIFA World Cup? Oh, when it became lucrative. Before, once upon a time, it was the World Cup, it was the George Rimet Trophy. It's now the FIFA World Cup because it generates so much money. Why have America got the World Cup in 2020? When is the next World Cup? 2026 in America.
Yeah.
Because it's $27 billion worth of revenue that's going to come into it. That's why it's the FIFA World Cup. Where he's wrong, you don't need to consult with these agents. And by the way, we all understand how agents operate. I haven't sat in an agent's office. I wouldn't want to sit in an agent's office, but I have had enough experience of agents to know how they operate.
Yeah.
So with the best will in the world, what he's pushing back on is some regulations that were being put in place and mooted about a year ago about capping agents' revenues, about transparency, about accountability, about the ability to follow the money and understand where agents pay and how agents get paid and who gets paid as a result of agents being involved in the sport and how it all manifests itself. And it's all been borne out of the staggering statistics that have come out which suggest that agents are getting paid hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds out of the game. They put very little back in the game, and I don't care what Jonathan Barnett says. They don't pay to be in this industry. They don't pay any subs, any tariffs, any levies. They don't pay any fees to be there. They simply remunerate themselves off the back of the talent of their their players.
It seems that agents and FIFA are definitely on a collision course, aren't they? I mean, not that long ago, Raiola was on here because they were up in arms, and he was up in arms on behalf of his clients, one of them being Zlatan, about their image rights being abused. So, I mean, one set of customers has very much got it in for the other. And a collision course is almost inevitable. I mean, you can tell that. And they are so sensitive to it. You can tell it in Jonathan Barnett's tone. We certainly found out that day how sensitive they are when Simon started tickling the ribs of Raiola.
Yeah, what Jonathan did say, whether he believes it or not, is that he does want rules and regulations to be better, and he is happy to be part of that process to try and find a formula to make that happen. That's easy to say when you've got X amount of millions already in the bank and you've done your big deals. So, but I think that there has to be some more regulation around the agents and what goes on, because it is a free for all, and you can use any analogy you want to describe it, and you can upset Jonathan Barnett, whoever else for that matter, by saying the Wild West, whatever you want to say. It's true. I know a couple of agents really well who are very, very wealthy young men. And, you know, they've done, obviously worked hard and done well, but
how did they get to become agents, Danny?
Pardon?
How did they get to become agents?
Who you know, the right language you speak, the right connections, if you played a little bit when you're younger, social butterflies, however you want. There's loads of ways people get involved in the agency world. The fact is that there's so much money in that world now that you've got, it's hundreds if not thousands of people out there trying to get into young footballers because they know that the riches are there to be taken, and there has to be some governance. While it is how it is, there are going to be so many people manipulating footballers and making money, not just agents, financial advisors, lawyers, all of them. They're all at it. Make no mistake.
Yeah.
I've been a victim of it. You know, it's everywhere, and it will keep happening, especially with the funds getting bigger. You know, the finances getting bigger of footballers. There's a lot of bad. Don't get me wrong. There's some good guys out there, but there's more bad than good.
Yeah.
That's right.
Even though, Simon, you may not have huge respect, if any, for agents, and similarly with FIFA,
I do.
It's no bad thing that the two sets of people sit down, is it?
No, of course not. I mean, I don't think that's the right way to do it, is to turn around and make the observations that Jonathan's made. He's pushing back. He bristled at your observation about the Wild West. Wild West doesn't just dictate criminality. It dictates a lack of control, a lack of civility, a lack of coherence. And ultimately, it's a fair analogy. It is the Wild West. They don't have to be regulated. They don't have to be controlled. They can pretty much do what they want. But what Jonathan Barnett will tell you, and I believe him to be right in this, and I believe him to have integrity, is it will suit him. The top agents won't mind, because what it will do is it will whittle away way, it will become a monopoly because they'll get rid of the rubbish in the industry. So the top guys, who are equally as bloody difficult to deal with, Mino Raiola didn't like what I said to him because he doesn't like being confronted with the truth and didn't have a proper answer to it, right? And because I know how their business works and I know what they do and don't do. But the football industry has allowed it. So it's now football's job to say to agents, if you don't like this, bugger off and represent somebody else in another industry. But by definition, if you want to work within ours, here are the guidelines, and we don't need consultation with you. You have to become licensed. And by being licensed, here are the protocols. And as a result of that, you like it or you don't like it.
Yeah. I get a Christmas card from Raiola.
Did you?
Did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't get a phone call, certainly.
The other thing with agents, Jim and Simon, as well, is that what's happening. We talked about footballers, living in bubbles and becoming a law unto themselves, if you like. And I've been part of that world, and I've made many mistakes thinking I was above the rules. But I think agents have got into that a little bit. Like in the limelight, too much to say,
Totally.
walking around like they own the place. I've seen them at matches, even in my day, and you think, oh my God. Who are you? You're like, you're straw.
Did you pay your agent, Danny? Did you get the club to pay him for you?
Both scenarios over the years. Went through two different forms of that, but yeah, mostly the clubs.
Don't you think there's a conflict, isn't it? I mean, that's where the real issue becomes more prevalent, is ultimately who pays the agents, because in no other walk of life does the agent get paid by the employer. Normally, the agent gets paid by the person he's representing. Whether it's a showbiz agent gets paid a proportion of the salary of the entertainer, or whether it's in any other sector, when you sell a house, the person that sells the house pays the agent.
But does it really matter, Simon? Because if I was negotiating £1 million deal with you, and my agent was getting £100,000, you just stick the £100,000 on, give it to me, and I give it to him.
That's the flip side of the argument, is you can't get around it, because ultimately, if you pay £50,000 a week, all of a sudden you've got to pay him 55 because you're absorbing the agent into the contract.
Yeah. Guys, a bit of news coming out of Scotland. The Scottish FA board confirms a 3-week suspension of professional football beneath the SPFL Championship. So that means the top two, in fact, the Premiership and the Championship, carry on. The impacted leagues are the SPFL League 1, League 2, Scottish Women's Football Premier Leagues 1 and 2, Highland League, Lowland League, East, West, South of Scotland Leagues, Scottish Junior FA Leagues, and the North Caledonian League. In other words, everything else bar the top two divisions, they carry on, but everything else is suspended